Ohio. Quedlinburg, the ancient city in the state of Saxony-Anhalt. In 1995 the Old City, the including Schlossberg, is entered in the list of the World Cultural and Natural Heritage of UNESCO. The structure of the city centre included more than 1,600 houses which age exceeds 600 years. The city is located in the valley of the River Bode, which in the Stone Age was considered as the perfect place for the settlement device. And modern Zamkova Hora represented a natural shelter. The city of Quedlinburg, which founder according to a legend was Quitalo by right, is considered gate to located a little to the south of Garzu. For the first time the city of Quedlinburg is mentioned on April 22, 922 years by Henry I. After the crowning of the Saxon Duke Henry I. Heinrich, as first German king, on her in 922 there was a temporary royal palace. Its value was so high that after the death of the king in Memlebena in 936 his remains were postponed here and buried before a Volkskapelle altar. The city used special honoring of a royal sword as Quedlinburg, the state mother country in which festive events and church holidays were spent. In 996 the Emperor Otto I opened on the mountain Schlossberg Quedlinski Abbey, at the head of which there was an abbess. To the north of Abbey Otto III laid the foundation for the city, which was provided for supply of abbey. Within 460 years of the abbess' divine city life that not always was to liking to citizens who had to pay taxes and excises to the convent obliged to protect the city in case of danger. Therefore the city sought to find freedom. In 973 in Quedlinburg there was an imperial congress at which there were ambassadors of many states, including the Kiev Prince Yarpok Sviatovich. In 1384 the city entered the Low Saxon community of the cities, and in 1426 the Hanseatic Union, and as a sign of the found freedom erected Roland's statue. Constant conflicts between the city and the monastery led to the fact that in 1477 the city underwent armed attack. By order of the Mother Superior Jadwigi of Saxony, the city left Hansa and was forced to sign the penitential diploma which limited the rights of the city. During fights the statue was destroyed and again restored only in 1869. In 1922 Quedlinburg noted the millennium, though the rights of the city were granted to Amotany by III only in 994 g. Noticeable architectural blossoming of the city falls on time of 30 Years' War. At this time a significant amount of still remained Fachwerkhof houses was built. In the 19th century in Quedlinburg the tradition of selection and cultivation of flowers, seeds and vegetables arises and develops, that the big wealth which found reflection in the magnificent country houses constructed at this time brought to the city. Selection and cultivation of seeds of vegetable, ornamental and pryanofkosovic plants plays a large role in the economy of Quedlinburg to this day. Though World War II also spared the city, old constructions of Quedlinburg seriously suffered during the DDR as actions for preservation of ancient houses were minimized. There were even plans of demolition of the old center and the market square to erect on this place of the building, corresponding to socialism era. Fortunately, implementation of this project was constantly postponed because of financial difficulties. After the reunification of Germany, measures for preservation of an ancient Fachwerkhof city architecture were taken. Sites. The ensemble of Verkerve houses which is standing still here the Duke Heinrich I sat more than 1,000 years ago, hunting birds. At this time reported to him about election as his emperor. The solemn procedure of a crowning was carried out then in Fritzlar. On north side of the market square the town hall for the first time mentioned in 1310 is located. To the left of the portal of a town hall there is a stone giant, Quedlinburgski Roland. Roland was built about 1426, to the ambassador of the entry of Quedlinburg into the Hanseatic Union. The first time in 1460 was documentary mentioned, in archive there is an account on his repair. Its height -275 cs, he the smallest of the remained symbols of the market right and market freedom and also aspiration of citizens to submit only to the emperor. A considerable part of history of the city is connected with Roland's statue. Roland is a symbol of belonging to the Hanseatic Union, and by that I am familiar to Independence of Abbey, which was near the city. Now this lock is within the downtown. The abbey considered the city of Quedlinburg as the subsidiary farm, but in the city there were enough people who wanted to direct. Therefore nuns from abbey, coming from rich families, so when they were sent to monkhood, the abbey needed a dowry. Besides, at nuns of the monastery family relations remained. Employed soldiers and attacked the city, destroyed and hid Roland somewhere in the cellar. There he lay nearly 400 years. In 1869 he was exposed on the market square again. In 2013 he was restored. Opposite to a town hall, at the beginning of Shirokaya Street, there is Brunkegen's house, built in 1701 in style of late Baroque. This patrician house decorates the market square, which became the pedestrian zone. The monastic church, Schichtikirk, is constructed in Romance style and was repeatedly reconstructed. The crypt in which in 936 the King Heinrich was buried was reconstructed in 1021, and in 50 years the fire which caused the thunderstorm was completely destroyed church. It was necessary even to sort her stone walls. But in 1129 the emperor allowed there open new church. Heinrich's remains, which were based in a stone sarcophagus, were lost. The city was considered by one of cult places of Nazi ideology. In 1937 Nazis turned the temple into the room for carrying out party ceremonies. They burned an altar and church benches. Heinrich's tomb turned out empty. The church suffered also from shelling during approach of Americans. Her restoration began in July 1945, after arrival of the Soviet Army. In the territory of the monastery there is also a so-called Western crypt, which is cut down in the rock in the 10th century and intending for burial of the died leaders of the monastery. But this tomb wasn't used for the direct designated purpose, and within several centuries served as a cellar for storage of potatoes and coal. Now in it the night bar, which kept the atmosphere of antiquity, is arranged. The building of the monastery is used for an exposition of museum of local lore in recent years. In church there is a treasury in which, in particular, there is about a half of the value sent in parcels of field mail to America by the American lieutenant in 1945, and only in 1990 returned back. is a peculiar exhibit of the museum serves the mobile prison, Rebraffenkassen, in which citizens supported the Count Albrecht to put in it in 1337. Opposite to Mount Schlossberg, the hill on which the ancient part of the city, Münzenberg, the monetary mountain, is located, towers. To rise by the hill, it is necessary to overcome 99 steps. From above, the picturesque panorama of Quedlinburg with his turrets against the background of Garz opens. From the tiny market square of this mountain town, small streets and side streets with small houses, Verkwerkefan. After Henry I's death, his wife, the Queen Matilda, who inherited, founded here convent which operated to the death in 968. The Queen's granddaughter becomes the first abbess of this abbey. From the former convent of Street Mary there were only small ruins. This monastery was founded by Art and Free Mother Superior Matilda II in command in 986 G and submitted to Schlossberg's monastery. In 1524-1525 both Quedlinburgski monasteries were destroyed by the risen peasants. Only the monastic bakery, which very tall pipe still towers over curved roofs of the town, survived. After 1576 on this hill handicraftsmen, carriers and musicians began to lodge. About Münzenberg's inhabitants the set of jokes goes. Here one of them. Fathers from Münzenberg showed to the just been born sons a coin and a pipe. If the child grabbed a pipe, he was fated to become a musician, if for a coin, the thief. If the child was enough a pipe and a coin at once, then became the composer. On the place of the former royal court where earlier the kings and emperors visiting the town stopped, there is a Vipertikirke church, completely restored in 1959. From three parties it is protected by river Watersbald, and with the fourth, Mount Capellenberg. Looking at Quedlinburg from above, first of all the attention is drawn by medieval city towers, the remains of a powerful city wall and numerous churches. In the middle of the 14th century in an ancient part of the city there were 18 towers, and in a new part -10 towers. They can be seen on ancient engravings of Marian. But with traffic growth entrance towers were demolished. Now in a modern part of Quedlinburg only 4 towers remained, and as much towers remained on the western side of an ancient city wall. The remains of the city wall, for the first time mentioned in the diploma of 1179, can be met everywhere. It is possible to count also its former length. 2290 meters in an ancient part of the city and 1570 meters in a new part. Old ditches and shaft protecting city walls were filled finally up and compared to the earth in 1821. Along with city towers in the sky of Quedlinburg also church towers are visible. The highest Gothic towers of Church of St. Nicholas, a monastic church in a new part of the city. 72 meters. This church is for the first time mentioned in 1222, but it was constructed earlier. Other church, Blazekirk, standing near the market square, is for the first time mentioned in 1223. The old tower of the church once decorated more ancient church construction of the 10th century. The Benedictine church, Markkirk, is located behind a town hall and is for the first time mentioned in 1223. One more church, Igidiekerk, is for the first time mentioned in 1179, but it was finally completed only in the 15th century, and Street. Matilda's Church is built in 1855-1858 for the Catholic community. In 1906 Street, Ions Church was constructed. The former joint church in Jernrode represents an outstanding example of Romance architecture of time of Boordata I. The unique shape is given to Quedlinburg by hundreds of houses Verkerkhof built in the 14th-18th centuries. Houses around Benedictine Church Mark Kirk are most remarkable. The narrow and high house with speakers one above another floors is built in the 15th century in Gothic style. The Verkerkhof house stands architectural jewelry in style of the Renaissance near 16th century. And behind him there is a building of city heralds where the gendarme and the midwife lived besides heralds. Closes this row 18th century. The most ancient Verkerkhof house in the territory of East Germany. The first half of the 14th century is located at near the market square Vodgas 3. In it a small museum devoted to art Verkerkhof is placed. Each floor the Verkerkhof Gothic style is a house in itself. This element repeats repeatedly, and the first floor is higher than the others, and each subsequent floor acts over previous. This style conceded later to the Low Saxon style. In this style the house of the writer Klopsteck on the Mount Schlossberg is built. An Verkerkhof Renaissance can be met in an ancient part of the city centre. Civil buildings, for example, Heigenschfreikhaus, the palace in style of the Renaissance, also belong to monuments of architecture of Quedlinburg. The appearance of this building didn't change since the 16th century. As a model of monumental architectural art of Baroque serves the courthouse at Kornmark behind a town hall. Natives of Quedlinburg. The writer Friedrich Gottlieb Klopstock was born in Quedlinburg on July 2, 1724 in the patrician house. The 16th century. On the Mount Schlossberg. The city widely celebrated the 250th anniversary since the birth of Klopstock. The house in which he was born was restored, now the Museum Klopstocka is placed there. The house is named lovingly Old Klopstock. The monument to the writer was built earlier, on July 7, 1831. Also in Quedlinburg Johann Christian Gutsmuts. 1759-1839. The founder of the sports movement was born. In 1904 Gutsmutsu's monument was open. On a pedestal near him there is in the best pupil, Karl Ritter. Karl Ritter. 1779-1859. Is considered the founder of scientific geography. Ritter became the first professor of geography of the Berlin University. Dorothea Christiana Erxleben-Lepperin. 1715-1762. The first woman, the Doctor of Medical Sciences. In Quedlinburg in 1834 the poet and prose writer Julius Wolff was born. Meissner Otto. 1819-1902. Is the German publisher in whose printing house K. Marx's Capital was for the first time printed. Economy. In Quedlinburg as however and across all former Dieder, unemployment rages. One of the main industries of Quedlinburg seed farming is considered for a long time. At the time of the Dieter in Quedlinburg there were several enterprises and the plants which were engaged in selection and reproduction of seeds at which thousands of people worked. Today there were only a couple of companies which carry on rich tradition of seed farming. One of them Satimex Quedlinburg Handelsgesellschaft M. Chab. To emphasize belonging to rich tradition of seed farming, this company carries the name of the city in the name. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.